just like Israel gets to be as it wants to because it has America backing it with its endless air defenses, America gets to be as it wants to all around the world because it has the most powerful military on the in the world. 800 military bases, can be anywhere around the world and strike with severity if it wants to, like it did with Iran. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps has released a statement following the attacks in Doha. It says it launched a powerful and devastating missile attack on the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. Now, this base serves as the command center of the U.S. Air Force and is the largest strategic asset of the American Army in West Asia. Well, Qatar's Ministry of Defense has released a statement following the Iranian strike on that U.S. base. Qatar is saying that its air defenses intercepted a salvo of missiles targeting the Al Udeid air base. It continued saying the incident did not result in any deaths nor in any injuries. The ministry says Qatar's airspace and territory are safe. Well, joining us now from northern Doha is our correspondent, Dorsa Jabari. Dorsa, you are also out on the streets of Doha. Tell us what the situation is there, some hour now after we heard those explosions.
Well, Laura, things are returning back to normal. It was quite a shock for the local population here when they heard those sounds of explosions over the Doha skies. Suddenly, just around 16:45 GMT, many people were initially shocked and scared and quite panicked. But then once they realized what had happened, things quieted down very rapidly. And now it appears, for now, the situation is very calm. Most people are going about their daily routine. This is, of course, very much a surprise to the local population, not something many people here were expecting. But there were signs from the hours leading up to this attack. First, the warnings issued by the U.S. Embassy here in Qatar, as well as the British Embassy, urging their nationals to stay indoors, basically, as well as then the Qatar International Airport, the Hamad International Airport, announcing the closure of its airspace temporarily. And then it was pretty much evident that there was an attack looming. What we have also heard from the Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Majid Al-Ansari, is that the Qataris have, and they say this is an attack on their sovereignty, and it is within their right to respond accordingly. And they also called for an urgency to de-escalate the situation. They urged the parties involved, specifically Israel, to refrain from continuing their attacks and escalating the tension that is going to clearly, most likely, drag the regional countries into this conflict if it doesn't get resolved very soon. The interesting thing we have to note is that this airbase has been here since 1996. It has a very long history in Qatar. It was at that time when the Qataris spent $1 billion building it, and it is home to around over 10,000 U.S. personnel at the last figure that we have. So it is the biggest, one of the biggest airspace fields and military bases belonging to the U.S., but it is not the only one. There are over 40,000 U.S. troops in the Middle East. There are 19 bases across this region. So really, most of them have been put on high alert since the United States carried out those attacks on the Iranian nuclear facilities, Natanz, Fordo, and Esfahan early Sunday morning.
Now, Dorsa, I'm just going to inform our viewers that in the top corner of our screens now, we're seeing debris that has fallen from...
More minor Fs, I know. I see it.
From one of those interceptions. Now, we're not quite sure whereabouts in Qatar that is. We'll try and get a location for you, or for our viewers. But we have talked a lot, haven't we, about missiles being fired over Israel, people having to go to shelters, not necessarily only because of the impact they might have if they're not intercepted, but from falling shrapnel. And here we are seeing exactly that in Qatar.
There's about a 9-second chat delay now. Okay, let's test out the delay. Hit 4 if you see this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7-second delay. There's about a 7-second delay. I'm working on fixing the issues that are happening with my stream. A part of that is because of the CPU, and a part of that is the internet. I am going to now fix the ingest, so you will experience an F right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it is. Did I time it perfectly? By the time you heard it, did I time it perfectly? Okay, we're back. Now we try a test out the delay. Okay, subscribe. You can do that for you can do that with a $6 a month subscription or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime. Twitch Prime is free as long as you connect your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. Subscription test. Subscription test. Go, go, go. Okay, yeah, it's immediate. All right, cool. We're back. We're good. Thank you. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Your contributions are what allow me to maintain my editorial independence. The Piker Broadcasting Service, PBS, is not sponsored by anyone else. Just you, the viewers, for you, the viewers, by you, the viewers. Thank you.
Yes, I think initially people did not know what to do, and then there were guidances provided. The first thing people were told was to take shelter in the metro stations here or underground parking facilities, which there is no shortage of. So people did get instructions, and that has been the guidance from the local government, is to ensure people receive the information that they need when they need it. But of course, these were very traumatic scenes for the majority of people. Qatar is home to about 2.5 million people, and in Doha, about 700,000 people call it home. So it is a significant number, and this seriously disrupted the quiet that has been part of the daily life of most people in this country. But many here are now hoping that this was it, that there is no continuation of these launch towards Al Udeid Air Base here in Qatar.
Doha, I just wanted to get an idea from you as to what you felt when those explosions happened about an hour ago, because we certainly felt them here in the newsroom. There was a successive wave of explosions. You could feel the shaking on the ground here in the studio.
Hey, I'm a Jason viewer just wondering how long until I die. Okay, nothing is gonna, I mean, I can't guarantee it with an absolute certainty, but things do not happen to America, okay, and to Americans. They don't happen all that frequently. Just like Israel gets to be as violent as it wants to because it has America backing it with its endless air defenses, America gets to be as violent as it wants to all around the world because it has the most powerful military on the in the world. 800 military bases, can be anywhere around the world and strike with severity if it wants to, like it did with Iran. Okay, but most importantly, America's proximity to the instability that it causes over there shelters the American public from experiencing repercussions. Okay, that's why you got Pearl Harbor, you got 9/11. Those are like the two instances of blowback where there was like immediate retaliation. Now, this doesn't mean that you won't experience it. You will experience your regular day-to-day living conditions getting worse, because there is a opportunity cost to all of this. Every single dollar that's being spent waging war over there is a dollar that could be spent on U.S. soil to improve your life, to improve your living conditions, to make life a little bit more livable. So when Americans actually experience the impact of all this bloodshed, all this, they see it over the course of multiple years. They see it over the course of decades, right? As far as like an immediate impact that you could have potentially experienced here, if Iran were to stop the Strait of Hormuz from doing any sort of oil traffic, 20% of the world's oil passes through this important choke point. Okay, if Iran were to actually mine the Strait of Hormuz and stop oil vessels from like passing through, then you would experience, then you would definitely experience some impact. Prices would go up. Gas would go up, even though a very tiny amount of gas or oil that passes through the Strait of Hormuz is oil that we end up getting here in the United States of America. It would just like drive up the prices across the board because OPEC Plus is a monopoly, is a cartel. They set the prices across the board, and American oil and gas companies do not actually increase its production or redirect some of its oil and gas back to the American market in an effort to stabilize American prices, because they take advantage of that oil. They take advantage of the higher prices in general. They have not done so during COVID. They did not play ball, regardless of how much Joe Biden tried to force them to do so, but they didn't do it because they also take advantage of the increased prices. It's beneficial for them. So that's one impact that you would see. When people say we can pump a lot more oil if gas prices go up, that's copium. That is operating under the assumption that the oil and gas giants will actually compete with OPEC Plus instead of take advantage of the increased prices. They have never done so, so I doubt that they would do it now.
Where were you and what was your experience?
Well, I was at one of the local malls getting a coffee, and I was waiting for a taxi. And then I heard, so I was outside, and I heard the sounds first, and then I felt the ground shake under me, and I knew that the attack had happened and it had started. And I heard at least 4 explosions in the skies. And then it was very difficult for people to understand what was happening. People around me were asking me, what's going on? What should we do? Given that we have had some experience in this kind of situation in the past, I was a bit more calm than most people, but I urged them to basically stay indoors, not to be outside in open spaces. But really, it didn't last very long, and then we started getting news and information from official sources here about what people should do and what had just happened. The main question now is whether or not this is the end. And most likely, many analysts believe that this is what Iran intended to do. And it was more of a show of force, not only to the Americans that are based in the region and the officials in the White House and U.S. President Donald Trump, but also to the regional countries that are now in the firing line. Of course, the Iranians, the last thing they want to do is to drag a country like Qatar into this conflict. But it is certainly a reminder that these U.S. bases in the region are now legitimate targets for Iran. And what it says is its sovereign right to defend itself against the Israeli and American aggression on its own soil.
I mean, this may well be the end of the attack. We don't know that yet. We do know that Bahrain has closed its airspace, and Syria has its main airbase there in Syria is on high alert, as are air bases in Iraq. We don't know what the next step is going to be. What we do know, though, is that the sense of security that Qatar enjoyed, it's 2.5 million people, there's 700,000 people in Doha, many of them expats from around the world, the sense of security that I
was watching The Interceptor from my window in Qatar. I support Iran, but it was scary as hell. I can only think about the Palestinian people and what they have been through for years. Yeah, it's we'll see. This seems like it might be a big boon for the Trump is a peace through strength president. Okay, Iran's lack of escalation, like Iran's lack of presenting a significant deterrence, at least for this back and forth with America and Iran, feels as though maybe Trump will pack this up. I don't know. If he does this, he will get a tremendous boost from this. Okay? He'll say, you see, we showed our military strength. We got a big W here. We violated Iran's numerous red lines. We violated Iran's sovereignty, and they didn't want the smoke. And they couldn't do anything to us. And now we have to stop Israel. Like, we're going to tell Israel to back down, and Israel will actually back down. Well, if they will, we'll see. If there is a real ambition here if there is a real ambition here, if this isn't just about destabilization, if this isn't about destabilization, if this is not about destabilization, this is where it'll end. Okay? But Trump has so far used the negotiations process to basically do whatever they want. They've used the negotiations process to continue doing more war, working towards a destabilization effort. To be honest, I'm shocked the market didn't crash today. I don't think Wall Street thinks Iran is going to seriously retaliate. They're probably right, to be honest. I mean, Iran signaled that their retaliation was going to be very limited. A White House official told me that Trump's goal now is to end the war, and he's going to make it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we want a deal and don't want any more, the official said. Here is Mossad's very own Barak Ravid. Trump calls for ending after Iran's retaliatory attack. His story for Axios. Israeli agent Barak Ravid reporting for Axios. How can we be sure he actually wants to end the conflict? We have no assurances, man. Trump's word means nothing. America's word means nothing. Israel's word means something. It means the exact opposite. Okay? America's word usually means the exact opposite as well. So we shall see. We shall see. From this point on, if Israel has more destabilization in mind for Iran, they will continue escalating the conflict, which will, of course, provoke even more ballistic being lobbed in the direction of Tel Aviv. And that is unsustainable for Israel without, I don't know, America entering the conflict and redirecting the Iranian military response at American targets instead. Because if they're too busy defending themselves against like American bombing campaigns that will be overwhelming, they won't be able to continue successfully lobbing ballistic in the direction of Israel. So Israel is the most significant player in this once again. This isn't true. It's Israel that wants the ceasefire most of all. Iran would be foolish to accept while they have the upper hand. This isn't true. It's Israel that wants the ceasefire. They always do this. They pretend America is making them. No, I don't think so. I also don't think Iran has the upper hand here at all. I think Iran has shown once again that they literally do not have the power to defend themselves. They did the same thing to Hezbollah. What are you talking about? Where is Hezbollah right now? Israel destroyed southern Lebanon. They destroyed parts of Beirut in an effort to do a decapitation strike. Oh, you mean in 2006? Okay. Yeah, this is a little bit different than 2006 as it stands, because look at Hezbollah now. Israel basically did a decapitation strike on Hezbollah, killed so many civilians in the process, reduced city blocks in Lebanon into rubble, okay? And in the process, all they got was less deterrence and more of an ambition to finally strike Iran without incurring significant penalties. If Hezbollah had its pre-October 7 striking capabilities right now, Israel would be incurring significantly more damage. I understand that Israelis are talking about how they can't survive a war of attrition, and it's true. That's 100% true. You are absolutely correct on this. Yes, you are correct on this. That is why I'm saying, okay, do not misunderstand my statement here. Israel clearly cannot continue withstanding ballistic missile strikes from Iran unless America also joins the bombing campaigns and starts targeting ballistic missile launchers and takes advantage of the air superiority that Israel and America has created, at least in certain parts of Iran. Okay? That's the reason why Israel's goal in this equation is to bring America into the forefront, is to forcibly bring America and the American military into its war with Iran. Israel wants more involvement from America so that Iran's attention is shifted away from Israel towards the United States of America. Israel wants a costly an endless military campaign against Iran so that they can destabilize the Iranian government and turn it into a failed state. Do you understand? It's a matter of whether or not Trump is also invested enough in Israel's goals here. If Israel continues escalating its bombing campaigns and Iran continues striking Israel and punishing Israel, okay, then either Israel will have to stand down, or it will try to do its very best to bring America into the conflict again. I said this last week when we saw the Iranian ballistic missiles and the amount that they were sending, the amount of ballistic missiles that Iran was sending got smaller, but the success rate got significantly higher. The moment that I saw a Shahed drone successfully strike an Israeli residential building was the moment where I was like, it's over. A Shahed drone with the Tamir interceptors and the Iron Dome that Israel has should never be able to penetrate and should never be able to hit Israel at all. That means even their most robust arsenal of smaller ballistics or smaller missile systems that are normally tasked with intercepting with a super high interception rate, missiles that are being lobbed over the Gaza boundary or missiles that are coming in from Lebanon, those missiles normally make short work of the slower moving drones that are coming in from Iran. They're intercepted in over Iraq airspace. They're intercepted over Jordanian airspace. They can be intercepted with helicopters. And if it passes through all of those, all of those defenses, then Iron Dome makes short work of it. The fact that Iron Dome was letting Shahed drones actually hit Israel proper, actually hit Tel Aviv, implies that even their Tamir interceptors are getting depleted. This means that Israel either has to move America into the forefront of this military campaign so that Iran is too focused on defending itself against a much stronger military, or they have to stand down. Here's Chris Kunzler's video on this. I already saw this. Is a great video. It's a very smart video. I'm glad that Chris also shaved his mustache. I'm the last person to talk about other people's facial hair, but I think the mustache wasn't working that good.
Missiles. Has anyone else noticed that in spite of the fact that Iranian missiles are still hitting Tel Aviv and causing pretty major destruction, I mean, look at this photo from this morning, we are not hearing much information about this, and in many ways this is hardly surprising. The initial reaction to Iran's retaliatory assault on them was pretty damning for Israel. Most people were showing absolutely no sympathy for Israel and were openly celebrating Iran's attacks. And so the Israeli government went out to ensure that people were not posting videos of the destruction, failed missile interceptions, or impacts as a whole. But there is also a very important reason that this is not being shown. And this is because...
Please watch this. You really need to watch this. Iran is winning, and it isn't even close. Iran is doing asymmetrical warfare, not imperial warfare. Iran is winning. Physical damage is not only the damage being done. How are you so bad at understanding that Iran is winning? Okay, chatter. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Predictive history said this in April, and they're correct. It's this one Chinese professor that is now going viral that talks about how Iran is winning this. Iran is going to win this war, or is going to inevitably destroy Israel's air defense capabilities. To be fair, you've fallen for the Iran is running out of missiles this past week. No, I didn't say that Iran was running out of missiles. I said that given the limited amount of ballistic missiles that they were sending, Iran's missile, I said there is a suspicion, there's a reasonable statement to make here that Iran's ballistic missile launching capabilities might have actually diminished. Not to the same degree that Israel was claiming, where they were like, oh, we destroyed all of their launchers. We destroyed all the launchers. I never said that their launchers are all destroyed or a third of their launchers are destroyed. I'm saying that looking at the looking at the intensity of the strikes, looking at the amount of missiles that they're capable of launching initially versus the amount of missiles that they were capable of launching as of like yesterday, it's clear that their launching capabilities have diminished. That is true. That is not untrue. But why launch as many if they are hitting? What do you mean? Well, if their defense systems have been eroded, if Israel's defense systems have been eroded, isn't it more opportune for them to launch 100 right now and do one major retaliatory strike that basically brings the Iranian retaliation to the severity of Israel's counterstrikes and Israel's preemptive strikes? What are you talking about? There is no reason for Iran not to launch 200 missiles that will successfully hit Israel now and risk massive American intervention. America already did intervention. What are you talking about? Anyway, let's continue.
It's because the first few days showed Israel clearly hides military infrastructure within the vicinity of civilians. They have continually, baselessly claimed that in Gaza it is okay to violate international law over and over again because Hamas are evil and use Palestinians as human shields, and that's why people get killed.
Thank you, Open Presence, for the 100 gifted subs.
But when it comes to Israel, it was increasingly clear, as many people have known, that Israel hides military infrastructure near civilians. This was noted by a senior journalist, Ori Goldberg, just a few days ago. And Israel has a hit.
Yeah, this, by the way, is also, this was the first couple of days of Operation True Promise 3. The first couple of days of Operation True Promise 3 showed us with 100% certainty that Israel's anti-air defense capabilities were directly slammed in residential neighborhoods. Ironically enough, once again, proving the point that everything Israel says about its enemies is pure projection. Okay? Pure projection. When they say, oh, Hamas is launching missiles from hospitals, it's Israel that is literally using human shields. Okay? If that's the assessment, if this is like the human shields meta, Israel showed anyone with two eyes that can see the initial strikes that were taking place and the bombings that successfully struck areas of Tel Aviv, that it was actually anti-air defense systems that were being targeted, and the anti-air defense systems were being deployed from the side of Tel Aviv in crowded residential neighborhoods. Israel has its base of command, the Mossad headquarters in the heart of Tel Aviv. Israel has military installations in residential neighborhoods. Israel has intelligence installations in the middle of residential neighborhoods where other businesses are doing commerce. This much is true. So yes, of course, Israel was once again projecting.
History of this. In 2008, Jonathan Cook published this article about Hezbollah's attacks on Israel, and what he said is that the military censor prevents publication of a considerable amount of things, but what was clear is that Israel's practices were endangering civilians because they were planting military infrastructure near them, using them as human shields. And these are the reasons that you have stopped seeing images of these attacks, because Israel was losing control of the narrative. It was showing that all the things they had claimed about Palestinians were actually true of themselves.
Not only that, but also Israel kept showing successful strikes to garner sympathy in the global stage, thinking that this would actually, once again, make Israel look like the victim. And that failed spectacularly. It didn't even move people's attention one bit, partially because while they were in the process of getting bombed and then continuing to bomb Iran, one, they killed more people and more civilians in Iran than Iran killed in Israel, of course. And on top of that, they never stopped their ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. They never stopped their ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. They kept killing people at the humanitarian aid drops. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, if you remember, is yet another violation of international human rights and the Geneva Conventions, engaging in perfidy, using aid and aid delivery mechanisms as a military installation. So, of course, there was no sympathy for Israel. They never even got any sort of sympathy whatsoever. If anything, people were either very quiet about Israel finally being struck after months and months of doing ethnic cleansing in Gaza, or they were openly celebrating it. So they didn't even get their PR goals out of the successful strikes, no matter how hard they tried. Obviously, if you go to CNN, if you go to Fox News, they were talking about how devastating this has been for the civilian population of Israel, how destroyed they are, how scared they are, all this stuff. But that fell on deaf ears. I don't think this changed the dynamic for even the Western world at all. And there we are. This is part of the reason why I've said,
we're going to begin with the news.
Regardless of this back and forth with Iran and Israel, Israel's ambitions are over. The moment that the ethnic cleansing ends, either by force or because Israel finalized this ethnic cleansing project, and I hope that's not the case, but that is the assessment of the likes of Chris Hedges and many others, that the Israeli Zionist project is done. This is the last bastion, okay? The last attempt at winning as much territory as possible and forcing America's hand to join the battle to the best of their ability and try to redesign the region under Israeli control, okay? Because once the world finally sees, so you're an anti-Zionist now? Now, first-time chatters, Israel's small country, Iran is huge, pretty sure it's different. There's never been a moment where I wasn't an anti-Zionist. What the fuck are you talking about? Now? Oh, you're joking. Okay. Shameful. Israel is small. Iran is big.
Because there was a lot of it over the weekend. The surging tensions in the Middle East after those U.S. military strikes on Iranian sites on Saturday. And then overnight, Iran fired a new barrage of missiles against Israel, and Israeli warplanes launched fresh attacks inside Iran. Meanwhile, the Iranian government is vowing a, quote, decisive response to the American attacks on 3 of its nuclear sites. How'd those attacks do? Satellite images of those facilities show bomb craters and significant damage, but how about underground? The U.S. military is still assessing that question and the full effects. We've got complete coverage and a look at what is next, but we're going to begin with Deborah Pata. She is inside Tel Aviv, Israel for us. Deborah, good morning to you.
Good morning, Tony. Well, several countries across the Middle East have criticized the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear sites, calling for diplomacy amid fears the war could spiral out of control. Now, this as Israel and Iran continued to trade strikes. This morning, sirens warned of another wave of Iranian missiles, this one exploding in Ashdod. And just hours after the weekend's U.S. strikes, Iran unleashed a barrage of rockets, devastating a huge residential neighborhood in Tel Aviv. All that remained of this building were the hollowed-out shells of apartments where people once lived. There were no fatalities. Israel has also not let up its bombing campaign on Iran. And thousands.
Yeah, the Ashdod attack was on a planet. Do they? No, because it's not beneficial. It's not beneficial for Israel to show how weak they are, especially how weak their infrastructure is. Just like they stopped talking about the Haifa oil refinery that was successfully struck and was shut down for an extended period of time. That only came after Israel blew up the oil depot in Tehran, by the way. Israel blew up the oil depot in Tehran, and then Iran in retaliation blew up the Haifa oil refinery and took it out of commission. Israel hid that fact, and the only reason why we found out about it is because other people had filmed it on their phones while it was happening, and the refinery was on fire. And then also the Haifa oil refinery had to release a statement they had to release a statement to their shareholders, basically, that they were getting decommissioned. Israel is also successfully striking around the ports as well, from what I understand. So, or not Israel, sorry. Iran is striking Israeli ports or around the Israeli ports as well. So they have kept up tremendous pressure. They've kept up tremendous pressure on Israeli society. They've kept up tremendous pressure on the Israeli economy.
Thousands of Iranians rallied in Tehran to protest Israeli and U.S. strikes. The U.S. has no right to tell us what to do, said Ali. We must slap America hard. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, is in Moscow today.
This is IRGC propaganda. Please, please, please don't give them the platform to show this, please. These people are being paid by the IRGC. CBS Mornings being paid by the IRGC. CBS Mornings. I guess this is what the communist broadcasting service mornings in the pocket of the IRGC.
For talks with President Vladimir Putin.
President Trump, I thank you.
Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has thanked the US for stepping in and offered prayers for President Trump, saying he had driven out evil from the world. Netanyahu has also flirted with regime change in Iran.
Israel's already engaged in one.
We asked the former ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, if this was a fantasy.
It's not up to us to topple the regime. It's up to the Iranian people.
Senior Israeli officials have...
Do you think showing the American audience that Iranians are white would help reduce the bloodlust of some conservatives? Yes. I think unironically, as much as I get annoyed when people show like Tehran and go, look, this is just like a European capital, like that is not the only reason why people should be worthy of dignity and humanity and survive and not be bombed, okay? But yes, that does play a major role in the way like a lot of Americans analyze the situation. I'm not even kidding. Like you'll see, I've seen so many posts like this where people just show Tehran, like normal Tehran. Some women are covered, some women are not. They go, what the, how is this possible? Because that's how stupid the average American is. The average Westerner literally thinks Iranians are like living in huts and riding camels to work, okay? That's also partially why the whole like, this was Iran before the revolution post slaps so hard for the dumbest Americans, where they think like Iran was only like a Western adjacent nation under the Shah, as though Iran didn't. They don't even factor in what Iran used to look like in the 50s, for example. Iranians are more sophisticated and smarter than Oslo. You get shunned by your whole family if you're not a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. The Iranian public is also more educated. Iranian women have more educational attainment than even American women do. That's like the other side of the story that is like insane, where people that will turn around and be like, Iranian women are not allowed to leave their homes. They're not allowed to get an education. It's so stupid. It's just wrong. It's additionally dumb for an American to say that. Iran is a STEM nation, okay? They are the most stem cell ass nation. You'll be shocked to find out Palestinians broadly are also incredibly educated as well, in spite of living under a ruthless blockade in Gaza and a ruthless and cruel and bloody apartheid for 77 years. This does not mean that this is not the only metric of worthiness for humanity, for the record. People think every single Muslim country is a cross between ISIS throwing gay people off the roof and the Taliban. Don't let women do anything. Yeah, it's so goddamn annoying. It's so frustrating. And it's always, the principle is always the same too. It works even harder because Islamophobia is like this ever-present normalizing force that makes people comfortable with this bigoted attitude. But ironically enough, it's always the same principle with America's adversaries, right? Like the example I always use is when the New York Times wrote an article about Beijing and how they had this like new museum that they had created in Beijing. And they were saying like, this whitewashes China's bloody history. And I was like, that's a museum. That's every museum. Have you been to an American museum? Like, that's literally what museums do. You're describing the function of a museum in a country, but because it's a Chinese museum, you're like, this is unacceptable. This is, this is whitewashing Chinese history. It's like, yeah, no shit. That's what every museum does. That, and also they house a bunch of stolen artifacts for the most part. Okay. And I mean, I still love museums, by the way. I'm not saying museums are bad in general, but like we don't actually have like the same metrics for our foreign adversaries. And this is yet another example of this. Like, is the Islamic Republic of Iran, is the Islamic Republic of Iran a repressive force upon the secular population of Iranians? Absolutely. And at times, this has created real instability. At times, this has been a threat to its own power, right? This is correct. This is 100% correct. But the solution to this is not bombing campaigns and forced military intervention and a puppet state that is implemented in the process that will play along with Western ambitions in the region. And in an effort to also justify its control over the society, like the Shah did, create this ruthless force, a torturous force like the Savak, right? That's not the solution. That's not how you liberate Iran. As a matter of fact, bombing campaigns such as this one only create additional instability that forces the public to focus on that, focus on self-defense, and it sets back the stage for any sort of civil struggle that might happen organically in these countries. You understand? It's very, very stupid to think that we can like bomb Iran into being a more woke and gay country. It's idiotic. Just like you can't bomb Georgia into being more woke. Just like you can't bomb America into being more woke. You can't bomb Iran into being more woke either. That's not how this goes.
Told us the ball is now in Iran's court. It can choose to end the conflict by negotiating a deal, but if it retaliates against the U.S., that could spark a wider war. Gail?
Dozens of fighter jets
Deborah,
reported leaving Israeli airspace.
Now let's go to Weisha Zhang. She's at the White House.
That's so... Trump is like, come on, it's time for peace. I'm going to tell Israel it's time for peace as well. Meanwhile, Israeli fighter jets. Congratulations, world. It's time for peace. Israel's like, nah, actually, it's fine. We're not. Not time for us. Yeah, I guess Israel didn't get this memo. A White House official told me that the Trump's goal now is to end the war, and he's going to make it clear to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we want a deal and we don't want any war. Interesting. Seems strange to me that that's not happening. How odd. Anyway, as I've talked about, there is no appetite from the American public broadly for war with Iran, right? Not that it matters, because there is no democratic process. There is no democratic process when it comes to foreign policy. Foreign policy is uniparty. All that matters is our goals, our ambition, our interests, and the public's appetite for more war or less war is, I mean, it's good if the public is excited about more war like they were after 9/11. Having said that, it's very clear that disinterest in war and anger and resentment towards more war is not going to stop this administration from doing whatever the fuck it wants to do. Okay, here's the winner of Nobel Peace Prize in Iran says Israel's attack on Evin prison in Tehran has created a horrific situation for the inmates. The jail's hospital/clinic has been destroyed. Injured prisoners are not being attended to, and the regime is blocking families from getting news. Most political prisoners are held in Evin. So what happened was yesterday Israel struck, or last night Israel struck the Evin prison, where a lot of the political prisoners of the Islamic Republic are being held. They did that because they thought they could force like a prison break, basically. But of course, you can't do that by bombing. You can't do that by bombing the prison. So the prison health facility has been destroyed. Prisoners remain in wards with heightened security conditions are being moved. Injured prisoners have no place to be transferred and treated. And due to war conditions, they are not being transferred to hospitals outside the prison. A number of prisoners have not yet spoken to their families. And there are rumors that prisoners are being transferred to prisons around Tehran. And families are in fear and worry. When prisoners are transferred in these conditions, we will not have accurate information about them. We do not know how many conscripts were killed, nor do we know how many of the families of prisoners who went to Evin's prosecutor's office to follow up on the status of their loved ones were killed. The government is not providing information, and we don't have accurate information either. I call on international organizations to work with the release of all prisoners in these war-torn conditions. So, ironically enough, given that Israel's goal here is to cause further instability in Iran by forcing a prison break, their only method to do so is by bombing from afar. And of course, bombing from afar, instead of causing a prison break, is only harming the political prisoners. Do you want the political prisoners to stay in prison? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. but it's once again a own goal by Israel. Do you not understand the point? This is no different than Israel being like, don't you want the gays to be liberated in Iran? Free them. By what? Killing them with bombs? Because that's what happens. Don't you want the gays in Gaza to be liberated? By what? Being bombed and starved by the Israeli bombing campaign? That's not gonna liberate them. Israel's goals here is not the liberation of anti-regime dissidents and prisoners that are unjustly being trapped in Evin. It is to cause chaos and instability. Do you not understand? Yeah, notable that while Trump is telling the media that he wants the end of the war, Israel's carrying out one of the most brutal attacks on Iran thus far. They're currently on their 6th or 7th wave of airstrikes of the day. Like, do you think America should have bombed Auschwitz to liberate Auschwitz? Do you think that would have worked better? What are we talking about? Hell yeah, brother. I got a hammer and everything's looking quite like a nail. I got a hammer in my hand and everything looks like a nail to me. I'm American. Auschwitz is a bad example because they invaded it essentially. Yeah, they did. They didn't bomb it. What are you talking about? Exactly. That is the USSR's liberation of Auschwitz came because they successfully operated a military campaign on the ground, a ground invasion. Not to say that Israel would ever do a ground invasion in Iran. Obviously, they would never be able to do that. They would get destroyed. Khamenei tweet from literally just now. Those who know the Iranian people and their history know that the Iranian nation isn't a nation that surrenders. Khamenei with another tweet, this time in English. Trump just took a victory lap. I know, we already covered it. Yeah, we covered it already. Trump basically took the off-ramp. Israel seemingly has not gotten the message, though. And the American media is, of course... let's listen to what the Fox 5 has to say. Oh, they took Buttfeld out of the rotation for this one because they're like, this is a serious conversation. We can't have you put it up.
It was an amazing response. We all know that's not true. The people inside don't. But what do you think?
Well, good to be back with everybody. What a weekend. I believe Joey is largely right, if not totally right.
Wait, what is this? Senior advisor to the IRGC Commander-in-Chief General Jabari. While we confront the Americans, we will simultaneously continue our own plans, operations to suppress, crush, and obliterate the vile, child-killing criminal Israel. We will not stop hitting Israel. We will respond independently to the U.S., and that response is due to their attacks on our nuclear facilities and their malicious behavior. But the ongoing plowing of Israel will continue. They are now in a very difficult situation. Oh my God, they're literally doing the Yemen method. I just realized they're doing Ansar Allah. They're Ansar Allah posting. This is what Yemen was trying to do, obviously to limited success because they don't have the same striking capabilities as Iran does, clearly. But this is the Yemen method. They're like, listen, America, you with us, yes, you keep killing our children. You have significantly more military power to do so without incurring any penalties back home. Israel cannot do that, however. Israel cannot do that at all. We're just striking Israel. As long as you don't strike us, America, we won't strike your naval vessels. They are now in a very difficult situation. Yesterday, as you're aware, our heavy strikes were carried out in 2 phases. First, with our drones, which I am familiar with and can say maybe even more precise and powerful than our missiles. 40 of our drones were launched and hit the intended targets. And today, Israel's in a situation where even after we launched around 20 missiles, they were unable to do anything in response. Our 40 drones and 20 missiles struck exactly where we intended and caused severe consequences. I say to you and the viewers, but let me emphasize, America's main assets in the region are not as ships or bases. Those are highly vulnerable. Israel's, he misspoke, he meant U.S. U.S.'s most important military asset is Israel itself, which today is incapable and overwhelmed in the face of our attacks. Israel has realized it is losing, and it must lose. It must be destroyed. It must be crushed. The people of the region must be freed from this wicked criminal. This is part of a broader strategic package we have with America. As you mentioned earlier, that's precisely why the Americans have come, to try to save Israel. But they will not succeed and will suffer damage themselves. The outcome of this story remains to be seen. I mean, Iranian generals talk a big game, okay? Ayatollah Khamenei also talks a big game. What matters is not what they say on television. What matters is what they do. But listen to my words, at least, or my assessment of this. What is happening? The camera's being extra wonky today. I don't like it. Okay, this might be a little bit better. So Israel's more offensive campaigns with its Air Force right now is happening because they have more offensive capabilities than they do defensive capabilities. Israel is operating with the best defense is an immense offense attitude, because the more they run out of ammo on their anti-air defense capabilities, and those are much harder to re-up and rearm because of how costly that is, because these are sophisticated missile systems and they're expensive, and especially the big boys, the ballistic missile defenses are much more costly than the Tamir interceptors, even though the single Tamir interceptor, the price of a single Tamir interceptor is $200,000. Okay, and those can't stop the ballistic missiles. You can deploy 20 of them if you want. None of them actually intercept a single ballistic missile, especially not a hypersonic one. So basically, because they don't have the capacity to play defense, they have to continue playing super hard offense. And the more Israel strikes Iran, the more Iran continues to strike Israel with increased intensity. Israel knows they cannot survive a war of attrition without the Americans playing a role, a significant role. And I don't mean just like a defensive role, because America has already been playing a defensive role in this, and it's obvious that, you know, ballistic missiles are still piercing through the Iron Dome, the Arrow systems, David Sling, and even the THAAD launchers that America sent. Okay? If they can't defend, why won't Iran hit their air bases? You think Iran is not hitting their air bases? Iran is hitting their bases. You don't see it because, like, their air bases are far away from the public eye, and therefore their air bases are far away from the public eye, and also their military installations. So the Israeli government does not allow any sort of filming of impact sites on air bases. An F-35 down by... No, this is fake too, man. Stop. What? This is correct. This assessment is correct. If this video, I don't know where it's from. I don't know where this video is from, and I don't think it's an F-35. The reason why I don't think it's an F-35, and I don't even know if it's from Iran, is because if Iran struck a F-35 successfully and downed it, they would release photos. Okay? They would release photos of it. They would put it on every poster. This would showcase that America's latest gen fighter that is multi-role is a dud, is a complete dud. And I know this because they have successfully struck drones. They've successfully struck and shot down Israeli drones. Why do I know that they've successfully shot down Israeli drones? Because the moment that those Israeli drones are struck and successfully intercepted, the Iranian outlets will make a big show of it, understandably. And also Israel will release a statement. The Israeli military command will release a statement saying, oh, our drone was struck. It's fine. It's negligible. They have no information that they can derive out of this drone. It's not a big deal. Bro, Serbia shot down one B-2 bomber in the 1990s and they made a whole ass song about it. Yeah. Israeli jets are mostly using standoff air-launched missiles to avoid air defenses. It wasn't a B-2. It was a F-117. Yes. That's the one that Chris Hedges was talking about, right? F-117 Nighthawk. It wasn't a B-2 bomber. No B-2 has ever been shot down. It was an F-1. Oh my God, I have so many plane autists and so many missile autists in the chat. Respect. Respect to all the chatters that instantly... F-117, my beloved. The F-35 wreckage is also a tremendously important... A potential F-35 wreckage is a tremendously important wreckage, dude. The amount of intelligence that you can give to Russia and China off of that is so insane. It's worth numerous Dongfeng missiles, okay? I don't know how many Dongfeng missiles you can get in response to the wreckage of a F-35. Are you kidding me? Unlimited Dongfeng missiles to Iran for a crumb of intelligence. to offer the Chinese government or the Russian government. Russia would send every S-400 they have to Iran. Lifetime supply of Dongfeng missiles, all of the Dongfeng missiles for you, sir. It's such a massive deal when we dropped one off the Vincent in the South China Sea in 2023. Yeah. The only thing that I've seen so far is just like AI shit about the F-35s. Far's new Minister of Comms is saying that after they shot down a drone, they discovered it was using the American Iridium satellite network. Iridium was initially funded by Saudi bin Laden Group. Yeah, I saw that too. And also saved from bankruptcy by the DoD in 2000. Yeah, I saw that as well. There's also some Washington Post releases, which I suspect is a release from Mossad. So I assume this is like more propaganda. Like Israel allowed this to be released. The Washington Post has published an audio file in which Mossad agents contact 20 IRGC commanders and give them 12 hours to flee Iran, or they and their families will be killed, which of course is also a war crime, by the way. Like openly admitting that you're going to kill people's children and their families, like you're going to kill civilians, is insane. This is a recording of a call that took place between an Israeli intelligence operative and a senior Iranian general on June 13th. The voice of the Israeli intelligence operative had been digitally altered in audio recording obtained by the Post. The Post prepared its own translation of the conversation and removed the audio, removed the voice of the Iranian general to avoid identifying him.
Hello, Salvador.
Hello, Commander. He says hello. Salam alaikum. He says hello.
Salvador. Salam alaikum.
Can you hear me? And you are. I'm calling from a country which 2 hours ago sent Salami, Bagheri, and Shamkhani to hell. And now for you, and I'm suggesting for you, Mr. Redacted, indistinct voices. Did Redacted come on the line? Bring him on the line. Can you hear me now? And you are. Listen carefully. I'm calling from a country that I'll explain to you. Listen carefully. I'm calling from a country that 2 hours ago sent Bagheri, Salami, and Shamkhani one by one to hell. By the way, Shamkhani didn't die. Shamkhani was part of the nuclear denuclearization negotiations team, and they thought that they had killed him in the strikes, but he actually didn't die. He is alive. He tweeted that he was alive, but injured. I think a couple days ago. The only advice I'm giving you right now, I can advise you right now, you have 12 hours to escape with your wife and child. Otherwise, you're on our list now. You, bleep, all of you, one by one, are on the list that I'm looking at, and you're our next targets. We will hit you, your family, your children, everyone, with the dirt. I only called to tell you, look, as long as there's time. I'll give you a reprieve. Like I said, 12 hours from this very minute that I spoke to you, you have time to escape. If not, you have no one to blame but yourself. We're closer to you than your own neck vein. Put this in your head. May God protect you. Well, you didn't say. I told you, brother. Hello? I explained to you clearly just now. You said what? I told you, didn't I? I gave you a reprieve. Which places did you take? What place did you take? Where did I take? All those savages, all those people like Salami. We sent them to that same place they should have gone to much earlier. What is this back and forth, bro? Is he trying to kill him with this annoying conversation? Is that what's going on? All jokes aside, this is yet another hashtag ad for the Mossad capabilities, okay? The reason why they're showing this is to say, like, look at how cool and badass we are, that we have the capabilities of like reaching Iranian generals directly and warning them ahead of time, and that they are fearful and that they're scared. They're terrified of our espionage capabilities, our military might. By the way, we are closer to you than your jugular is a line. God says in the Quran, it is psychological warfare he's trying to do. Yeah, I suspect that the reason why this conversation was released is because Mossad wanted it to be released, for sure. Okay, there's no way that they would leak this audio to the Washington Post. But the other reason why the conversation even took place is most likely to, again, engage in some kind of destabilization initiative, cause instability, and assume that like the IRGC generals would panic and flee, or it's probably to engage in more information gathering so that they can monitor with the embedded Mossad assets that they have in Iran at the time, that they could monitor where they go so they can more successfully strike whichever area that they go to. How is this good optics? Your pause on a threat to his wife and child, literally proving what they deny daily. Brother, what do you mean good optics? They don't give a shit. What are you talking about? They have literally been conducting an ethnic cleansing campaign on a starving population, primarily killing women and children for the past 20 months. It is clear that the Western Western countries and their leadership does not give a. They don't give a that I'll prove it to you. Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, a couple months ago at this point, openly said, we are killing everyone in Gaza, and the Western world doesn't say a peep about it. Of course, we have to let them have a crumb of food, because he was defending why there was any food being let into Gaza at all. He said, we're killing everyone there. We're doing the ethnic cleansing campaign. We're doing the final solution, and the Western world is not stopping us. But this is the one thing that they actually get up in their feelings about. So we have to let like a little bit of food in while we implement our final solution. He said that openly. He said that openly. Did anything happen? No, nothing happened. You might not have even heard about it until this very moment. I covered it extensively at the time, obviously, but, you know, it is obvious that it doesn't matter what Israel does in terms of like numerous violations, in terms of all of these war crimes that they engage in on a daily basis. Do you want to be one of them? Do you want to be the next one on the list? Do you also want to destroy your wife and child? No, right? I'm telling you right now, I gave you a proposal. Say it. You have 12 hours to make a video saying we have walked away from this government and we're unwilling to sacrifice our lives. For people who destroyed our country for 46 years, they only killed, stole, took. They cut the children off this country into pieces. Well, how should I send it to you? How should I send it to you, says the Iranian general. I will send you a Telegram ID. Send it. Say it. Say it. I'll send it to you. I'll SMS it now. Where will you SMS it? I have your number. Look, we have everything on you. It seems you haven't understood. It's clear you don't even understand where you are right now. I'm telling you, we hit all your leaders. They went into the air. We turned them into powder. Now you are sitting here and you think you're talking to me. You thought what you're sitting there. I'm calling to give you a proposal to save your wife and child. You wretch. Are you confused? Well, I'm saying, how should I send it to you? I'm saying I'll send it to you. Hello? And I'm with you. I hear you. This is what happens when millennials are in intelligence. They don't know how to speak on the phone. Yeah. Okay, I'm starting to see why diplomatic negotiations have broken down. Yeah. The average Israeli is incapable of conducting a normal conversation without instantly trying to bully ball his way. Anyway, I don't know if this is real, but the purpose of this serves is that is propaganda to showcase Mossad's capabilities and to say, oh, even the IRGC generals are very scared ball with our threats. There's a really, really devastating Harvard analysis that came out that I'm going to also cover as well, obviously, that showcases that there are 377 Palestinians unaccounted for on top of like the actual, or almost 400,000, but 377 unaccounted for in the death counts and in the estimations. And I will talk about that in a little bit. But before I do, in this back and forth, I want to know what the Democrats are doing. Oh, here's Greg Sargent from the New Republic. Amazing. New York Times has more confirmation that Trump's decision to bomb Iran was motivated in large part by the way the Israeli strikes were playing out on Fox News, which drove him to want some credit for it. He marveled to advise about what he says was brilliant Israeli military operation, which involved a series of precision strikes that killed key figures in Iran's military leadership and blasted away strategic weapon sites. Mr. Trump took calls on his cell phone from reporters and began hailing the operations as excellent and was very successful, hinting that he had much more to do with it than people realized. Later that day, Mr. Trump asked an ally how the Israeli strikes were playing. He said that everyone was telling him he needed to get more involved, including potentially dropping 30,000-pound GBU-57 bombs on Fordo, the Iranian uranium enrichment facility that buried underneath the mountain south of Tehran. Political advisors to Mr. Trump had been swapping notes on various public and private polls examining the popularity of military action against Iran, noting that American support for an operation depended in part on how pollsters asked the question. While polls showed that an overwhelming majority of Americans did not want the United States to go to war with Iran, most Americans also did not want Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. The president was closely monitoring Fox News, which was airing wall-to-wall praise of Israel's military operation and featuring guests urging Mr. Trump to get more involved. Several Trump advisors lamented the fact that Mr. Carlson was no longer on Fox, which meant that Trump was not hearing much of the other side of the debate. You're telling me we got into a war, another war because Trump had FOMO? It's a combination of numerous different factors, okay? This is not the end-all be-all. This is what drove it over the finish line. The rabid Zionist freak General Kurilla that is in his ear, who is such a bloodthirsty monster hell-bent on solidifying his legacy. Okay? You have numerous Israeli operatives and Israeli envoys that are directly in the room with Donald Trump or can make one phone call to Donald Trump, all telling him that America has to join in. And I also suspect that the initial conversation that took place before the negotiations were slated to come to an end was absolutely conducted ahead of time. Like, he knew that Israel was going to strike. I believe that. He knew that Israel would use the protected cover of a negotiation process to implement a first strike, because it wasn't sophisticated espionage capabilities that they can use. Israel has sophisticated espionage that they can use whenever the opponents are not expecting it, right? And the best possible time to use the sophisticated espionage capabilities, like the Mossad operations that took place inside of Iran, where they basically were able to take a 3-story building and turn it into a drone manufacturing site. And those drones were quickly and swiftly sent to all of the air defenses, right? All of the air defenses that Iran had, in an effort to make sure that their first decapitation strike was successful, which it was. That could only be conducted under the protective banner of negotiations, diplomacy. At the risk of being lasered into the moon, what's the ETA on the Zoran segment? I'm abstaining from Iran news for mental health reasons. Eventually, I'll talk about it. Do you think Iran has also sleeper cells within Israel? Yes, I do. They have used them before. They used them on, I think it was Operation True Promise 2. I don't know how many more they have currently, but they certainly, it's not, Israel has, Mossad has been able to penetrate Iranian society far more successfully than Iran has been able to with Israel. Having said that, however, I'm sure that there are still sleeper cells within Israel, within Israeli society, but they clearly have not activated them like they did last time for Operation True Promise 2. Because if you remember, when Operation True Promise 2 was happening, there was a bus stop attack that took place simultaneously. That was an Iranian operation, for sure. I'm shocked that Iran has those. Seems like hell to get sleeper cells in there. No, it doesn't. That's not how it works. You find sympathetic figures. Like Mossad's operations doesn't mean like literal Israeli nationals, Israeli Jews living in Iran. They're not like going to Iran and they're like, hey, I'm actually Iranian, but secretly they're Israeli nationals. No, they take advantage of instability inside of the country, just like Iran would take advantage of instability inside of Israel, and sympathetic figures that they could find that are sympathetic to taking down Israel. And there's plenty of people in Israeli society that would be invested in that, Palestinian citizens of Israel, or or other like-minded figures they can find. In the same way that Israel can use the existing groups that are already very much unsympathetic to the Islamic Republic. Eric Kurilla, top U.S. military commander in the Middle East, began planning joint U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iran during the Biden admin, per a former U.S. official. While Biden didn't okay the strikes, his team knew of and permitted the prep that enabled Trump and Netanyahu. Yeah, H3 Atanomi, Heather Nomi. Thank you for the 10 gifted. We get meta ads in Lebanon paid for from Israel, urging us to cooperate with them. That's crazy. Heathenami. What? Damn, it's who has the power to steer the U.S. away other than the people uprising full chaotic cycle? Can you go around the U.S. and conduct proper diplomacy and fix all this? Fuck no. The EU is the most servile. The EU is literally more servile than like the Gulf states are to American interests. Iranian scholar Heliet Doutaghi spoke to Drop Site's Jeremy Scale about Israel's three-phase campaign against Iran. She describes it as phase 1, sudden military onslaught to paralyze Iran's command structure and terrorize civilians. Phase 2, a failed effort to provoke regime collapse through unrest and infiltration. Phase 3, U.S. direct entry into the war, reflecting a declining empire's desperation. In this clip, she walks through the first phase, a surprise assault designed to inflict widespread terror on civilians by exploiting the element of surprise. She says the strikes hit over 100 sites in the first 12 hours, including significant senior military officials, civilian scientists, several university professors, including the president of Azad University in Tehran, and women and children. Many were killed in their homes, asleep in the middle of the night. She calls it a psychological as well as a tactical campaign aimed at inducing fragmentation or loss of control. And yet, within hours, Iran began to reconstitute its defenses. A miscalculation, she argues, shattered Israel's assumptions. Let's take a look.
Talk to you, but give us your analysis of what we're seeing unfold with this U.S.-Israeli war against Iran, the timing of it, and what you see as the agenda at play.
I mean, you start with a pretty accurate and comprehensive analysis of what has happened, and I just want to, I guess, add to that. And let me start by this point that it is very important to recognize that we are at a historic inflection point in history, one that is very much rooted in October 7th, anti-colonial operation of Al-Aqsa, which has essentially set the motions of the forces that are going to shape and are shaping the very formation of the New World Order, both specifically globally, but also specifically in West Asia. So the Israeli regime appears to be executing a three-phase operation or plan against Iran. And unlike its prior aggressions, in Yemen, in Syria, in Lebanon, and of course the ongoing genocide in Palestine, this aggression is encountering a radically different material conditions, hence the different forces that we're seeing at play. And I'm going to go through the three phases that I think have unfolded or are unfolding, and maybe we can discuss that together. And the very first phase, obviously, was what you explained. The operation was very much designed to target the command structure and inflict widespread terror on civilians by exploiting the element of surprise. And this phase was successful for the most part, in my opinion, because while Iran was at the negotiating table, as you mentioned, there was a coordinated wave of strikes targeting Iranian civilians, residentials, and military sites, as well as nuclear facilities in Natanz in the first round of strikes that are under and were under IAEA safeguard, right? So the victims of the first day's attack, including significant senior military officials, civilian scientists. We had several university professors, including the president of Azad University in Tehran, one of the prominent universities in Iran, and women and children. And they were overwhelmingly located in residential neighborhoods. Many were killed in their homes. The attack took place in the middle of the night, and many were killed with their families sleeping in the middle of the night. And while several high-profile assassinations, as I said, were assassinated, 5 out of 12 that they aimed to assassinate were killed in the first night. And the intent was to paralyze Iran's command structure and instill a mass fear through the targeting of civilians. And in the first few hours, Iran's air defense was also compromised significantly.
That for sure was the most sophisticated aspect of the Mossad operations. Like that, I would say that in and of itself is like, that wasn't even like the act of terrorism that the also sophisticated, but an act of terrorism that was the bombing campaigns from the beepers. The fact that they were able to deeply penetrate the IRGC and deeply penetrate Iranian society so they could actually have a drone building facility in the heart of Tehran is insane. And once they were able to dismantle some of the air forces, then they turned around and bombed all these people. Then they came in with the violence.
And which limited the capacity of the state to defend their airspace. And as a result of that, over 100 strategic sites and civilian objects were hit within the first 6 to 12 hours, I believe, and significant damage was done. So the objective of the attack was not only tactical militarily, but it was also psychological, right? So it was very much to induce this fragmentation of loss of control. And what was significant, and I think arguably unprecedented, was the fact that Iran was able to observe the attack and so incredibly quickly retain its structure and come back to an offense mode. And this was partly a miscalculation of Israel. It was the depth of Iran's revolutionary structure. And within hours, within 6 hours, I believe, 6-7 hours, the command was restructured, air defense was restored, and offensive capacity was activated. And it was less than 24 hours, if not, it was like 12 hours, that the first round of attacks of Iran in self-defense was launched, right? And the first round were firm, they were calibrated, and they were targeted at important military objectives. And they also passed through, it's very significant to note that the fact that the hits were and are continuously successful in occupied territories is due to the fact that it goes through, the missiles go through multi-layered interceptions with the most advanced military equipment of the collective base, right? The first layer is probably starts in one of the Arab reactionary regimes, Jordan probably, in terms of intelligence, and it goes through until it hits the target. So there are multi-layered levels of interceptions that these missiles pass. And, Iran developed this. Doing so, it completely disturbed the Israeli strategic assumptions and revealed that the readiness of the state that has spent decades, especially preparing for this moment, especially after the Western-backed Iraqi invasion of Iran between 18...
With just like with Yemen, a strike in the Hana is going to be costly, of course, in terms of the civilian casualties, but the society's attitude towards that sort of thing is, I think, very different than a direct strike in the heart of Tel Aviv. The response is the response that Israeli society will have towards a direct strike on Tel Aviv, especially if it's continued, the appetite that they have for instability, the appetite that they have for the amount of damage they can withstand and not be able to like live their normal day-to-day existences is very, very different than what the Iranian society or what people in Yemen can withstand. Not to say that like Iran and Yemen are the same, they're not, because Iran is also going to be less tolerant of endless bombing campaigns than even the people in Yemen are, because all the people in Yemen have known is death and destruction from Western forces and Western-backed militias, whereas Iranian society broadly has also experienced stability and normalcy. But given the position of Iran on the global stage, like, there is more of an understanding that this is a strike that's happening that didn't have to happen. If Iran, for example, was engaging in a dangerous gambit by constantly shut up instead of routinely showcasing restraint in the tit for tat between Israel and Iran, because remember, the way that Iran conducted itself, I have criticized to a certain degree, because like Iran has allowed all of its foreign policy apparatus to be eroded, the entire resistance to be eroded to a detriment to Iranian safety and security. But I think all of that was showing, like what that was showing to the public was that Iran was not willing to bargain with its citizens' lives, recognizing the unstable position that the Islamic Republic has in the eyes of its public. They basically didn't poke the beast, if you will. They didn't poke the beast at all, and then the beast still came for them, which is precisely why I think Israel was not able to take advantage of the initial destabilization that they thought they would get. They didn't poke the bear, and the bear still came for Iran, and then all of a sudden people recognized, like, you know, this is outside of the Islamic Republic's control. This is not something that they brought to. This is not something that they brought to us. That's what I think. That's why I think it's like, in spite of the negative feelings that a lot of Iranian society, especially secular forces within Iranian society, felt towards the government, tremendous amount of instability. Anyway, let's see what Jeffries is saying.
Donald Trump and his actions, which do not appear to be consistent with the United States Constitution, takes unilateral offensive military action without seeking the approval of the United States Congress. The use of military force, which is offensive in nature, must be approved by the House and the Senate. That's according to the Constitution. It's not optional, Donald. It's not. The framers of the Constitution actually gave Congress the power to declare war for a reason.
I'm losing my mind, because if you don't talk about the real issue here, this is just seasoning. This is a problem, not the problem. The problem is allowing Israel to run its dick all over every orifice of American foreign policy. The problem is going to war with Iran at the behest of Israel. A problem in the process is doing it unconstitutionally. It's so strange that these guys think that there is an unlimited amount of resentment that they could tap into right now. An impossible to defend decision made by the Trump administration. And these dipshits are basically taking the dumbest, most like rule-abiding aspect of this process. They're mad about the process in which these strikes were conducted, while simultaneously giving credit to why those strikes should have been conducted to begin with by saying Iran must never have a nuclear weapon. If you say that, then you don't understand why people voted for Trump to begin with. Nobody gives a about the process. Open Presence, thank you for the 100 get the subs. People care about going to war with Iran and potential retaliation from Iran. They don't care that it was done unilaterally. I mean, I'm sure people care about that it was done unilaterally as well, but like that's not the main concern here. Trump does everything unilaterally. He doesn't give a shit. Even things that he could get across through congressional approval, he still does on his own to prove a point. I'm not saying you shouldn't bring up the unconstitutionality of this, okay? That is definitely an important point to bring up. But you shouldn't only focus on that. Simultaneously, offering credit to why these campaigns must happen by taking Trump's framing and running with it. The framing that even our intelligence communities did not agree with in their initial assessments. But of course, Hakeem Jeffries is saying this because he is also bought and paid for by AIPAC. Democrats have a unique opportunity to present themselves as anti-war for once. They have a unique opportunity to also take away some of the people in Trump's base that are maybe in the margins that thought that they were voting for an anti-war candidate that clearly is not invested in anti-war at all. But instead of taking advantage of this opportunity, even with a cold, calculated, cynical approach, they can't let go of their other ambition, which is to, one, defend Israel's interests at all costs, and two, at the behest of defending Israel's interests at all costs, bomb Iran.
So the American people, through their elected representatives, would have the opportunity to debate the issue and make some decisions as it relates to what's in the best interest and the national security of the American people. Donald Trump and the administration chose to ignore the Constitution. And so they're going to have to come before Congress and explain their justification for an offensive military strike against Iran.
It is mind-boggling how bad this response is, because it's such a gimme. This is as big as a gimme as being like, I want a ceasefire in Gaza. Just saying those words. And I'm willing to stop Israel from getting weapons to get this ceasefire in Gaza. And the Democrats couldn't be bothered to make that simple statement. And they lost the election. Babanım kine benziyor. Evet. Yok, hayır, tercih etmiyorum. I cannot understand
the U.S.
how insane they are. And I also especially do not understand why so many Democrats, like visible Democrats on Twitter, Democratic Party supporters rather, are going along with this like false narrative. They're fantasizing about like Kamala Harris being a great peacekeeper somehow. It is obvious to me that Democrats do not want to be anti-war at a time when there is tremendous resentment against war, even by Trump's own base.
A good article about this because they're talking about making a comparison to Reagan's invasion of Grenada well before you were born. Reagan's invasion of Grenada, and it was not sanctioned. It was quick, very few casualties, if any, and didn't cost much. This will cost a tremendous amount of money. And are we thinking that Congress is actually going to engage in an appropriation to make this happen?
I think you bring up such an important point that I just want to add to real quickly, which is Democrats right now can literally put aside what they feel about Iran and whether Iran, and no one is here justifying or defending Iran's actions, but they can at least stand up for the rule of law in this country and say the president cannot start a war without the approval of Congress, and laser focus the conversation on saying do not start a war without the approval of Congress. And yet they seem to have completely abandoned that principle and say, well, he should.
All of Congress has abandoned that principle for decades.
Right, but we're talking about the politics of what the Democratic leadership should be doing instead of Americans looking at Tucker Carlson skewering Ted Cruz or Steve Bannon and saying, wow, I can't believe these are the people who are saying, hey, let's have a minute, let's have this conversation. That should be coming out of the senior leadership of the Democratic Party, front and center, say,
hey, but Tucker Carlson isn't just talking about congressional approval for war. If you think that the reason why he's gaining tremendous popularity off of this is simply because he just wants the normal process to take place, you've missed it. You've missed the actual point that he's making, which is, why are we going to war with Iran at all? What are you saying? Why are we getting dog-walked by our special client state? That's the reason why people love the Tucker Carlson interview. Because these are the kinds of conversations that never take place even in the media, and certainly don't take place, at least in public, with political figures. This is why Hakeem Jeffries calls Iran a sworn enemy. And he says Israel has a right to defend itself from Iranian aggression. Even though Israel attacked them first, he's a bought and paid for hack. It's true. What's wrong with Iran's actions? They're defending themselves against a genocidal state? No, 100%. I think it's cowardly for American politicians to not be like, dude, what are we talking about? Israel is a foreign state that struck another foreign state, a massive foreign nation state. What do you mean? Like, they just have to eat it? Like, what are you talking about? That's not how that works. Israel did a genocide after its own captive population that it is a belligerent occupier of had a prison rebellion after 75 years at the time of ruthless oppression. Why would you expect any country to not respond or retaliate when met with so much military force? What good are nation states if it's not to protect its own citizens, protect its own way of existence? That's the whole purpose.
We can talk about Iran, but this president cannot drop a 30,000-pound bomb on a country, lead us into a war, drag the entire region into it without the approval of the American Congress.
And it's message discipline. No kings, right?
Yeah.
No kings. Can't do this without us. You need Congress.
I like no oligarchs more than I like no kings. I think the Democratic Party keeps getting served issues we can win on a silver platter and just kind of turning them away. If we were staunchly anti-war, boom, skyrocketing popularity. If we really, really took it to the oligarchy, skyrocketing popularity.
But the problem is they're not anti-war and they're not anti-oligarchy, and that's the problem that we have with the Democratic Party.
And then they're like, why won't your generation vote for us? Well,
Bernie had thousands of people in deep red South Texas at a rally last night, though.
All right, guys, we're going to have to...
Okay, Cam. Okay, Cam. Friend of the show, Cameron Kasky, who also has a show now with Tim Miller, who I don't really like too much. But it is what it is. At the Bulwark. Cameron on this panel is like the inverse of this meme. Okay, so there's a 56-year-old woman here. Oh, yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah.
Attack on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. This morning, we're getting a look at some of the damage done over the weekend. Aerial images you see there showing impact on the surface. U.S. forces around the region and authorities at home are on alert for potential retaliation from Iran, warning its military will decide the timing, nature, and scale of its response. The U.S. has about 40,000 forces in the region, spread out among about 20 sites. We have complete team coverage, beginning with the 36-hour mission of the U.S. B-2 stealth bombers that attacked Iran on Saturday. Chief Global Affairs anchor Martha Raddatz starts us off. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Robin. President Trump called the mission a tremendous success, a mission carried out with maximum stealth. This morning, we're getting our first look at that extraordinary attack on 3
adversarial media, by the way, supposedly adversarial media to Donald Trump, for the record. When it comes down to doing defense for the military, doing hashtag ads for the military and our military might, is so crazy how much they've glazed Trump and glazed the military's war crimes. Like, what they were talking about with this strike was a direct violation of numerous rules, okay? You cannot strike nuclear facilities. You can, like, America is not allowed to strike nuclear facilities at all, let alone do it to a foreign nation that is not in war with. Out of nowhere, at the behest of another foreign nation that is doing an ethnic cleansing campaign that we're giving all of our weapons to.
Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. This fireball in the night sky. Explosions heard in the distance at Iran's Isfahan nuclear facility. Part of the barrage known as Operation Midnight Hammer that included the largest strike by B-2 stealth bombers in history.
This is a plan that took months and weeks of positioning and preparation so that we could be ready when the President of the United States called.
The operation carried out in complete secrecy, beginning at 12:01 a.m. Saturday morning. About a dozen B-2 bombers taking flight from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Around half of them heading west towards Guam, those with trackable movements. This was a decoy. Another 7, those with transponders turned off and minimal radio communications, launching a short time later, heading towards Iran. The 18-hour flight to Iran, including mid-air refueling and in-air support.
The B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft in a complex, tightly timed maneuver requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace, all done with minimal communications.
Approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday, a U.S. submarine launching 24 Tomahawk land cruise missiles at key service infrastructure targets for nuclear facility Isfahan. By 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, the 25-minute mission inside Iran's airspace activating. U.S. fighter jets sweeping in to protect the B-2s from possible enemy missiles and warplanes. The B-2s dropping 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrator weapons.
I think it's insane that this anchor is salivating a direct war crime. Like, this is, I can't stress this enough. This is just a straightforward crime of war, okay? It is wild that Americans are like, hell yeah, brother. You are not allowed to do no one is supposed to be doing this. For obvious reasons, there are severe consequences for this. For the civilian population, if you were to strike a nuclear facility, there's potential radiation contamination. There's radiation poisoning that could take place immediately for the civilian population near the fucking nuclear facilities. Nuclear facilities are also powering the energy grid. These ones weren't. But then it is quite loud. It is illegal. This is not... Trump says Israel and Iran agreed to a ceasefire that will start in 6 hours. Okay. That makes sense as to why Israel was striking super hard. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire upon the 24th hour. Wait, what? An official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. On the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will, I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel, God bless Iran, God bless the Middle East, God bless the United States of America, and God bless the world. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. He said, good game, guys. Well played.